We are doing something a little bit different. This is Avi Regev, and Avi is my tour guide when I go over to Israel. And so we invited him here to do the prophecy update with us, and that was a really awesome time. And I thought we'd do some stuff not along the same lines, but have him talk to us about Israel trips, what's going on in Israel, what's going on with the situation up in Syria, and all that stuff. So we've got a bunch of questions lined out for him. And so this guy is going to act as...
I'll moderate this morning.
He's going to try to keep us in line. That's what's going to happen. But then he gave us microphones. So.
Actually, I just had a question about the prophecy update, if it's going to be available online in DVD, and we're going to have those. Eric is our guy. He's going to get it up on YouTube real quick, and then also DVD if you want to order a DVD copy for your family or friends, and even CD. I don't know why you'd want that, but we're going to have it on all that. So on the app and everything. Did you guys enjoy the prophecy update, by the way? So I thought it was real good. So I have some questions I'm going to ask mostly Avi, and then Steve can interject when he wants. But we were actually at lunch the other day with Avi, and one of the things I found just kind of interesting was they refused to drink Pepsi. So when they offered him Pepsi products, they're like, no. And then his wife were like, no, only Coke. And we found out it's because for a long time Pepsi boycotted Israel. They didn't give them their product. And Avi spoke to the school this week about the fact that a lot of people try to boycott Israel and the products. And maybe you could just address that, what you think of that, Avi, how Israelis just respond to the boycott on goods and some of those things.
Well, that's something that goes for a long time. And during the Arab boycott, and remember that when we speak about the 60s and the 70s, the Arab world have much more power because of the oil money. And a lot of stuff that you usually will have here, we didn't have there in Israel. For example, Coca-Cola and Pepsi and others. And at a certain point, Coca-Cola stepped in, but Pepsi stayed for a long time only in Arab countries. And when it arrived to Israel, which was, I think, the late 90s already, we have a decision. We are not drinking Pepsi. And so this is something that goes way back to the establishment of the State of Israel. After 1967, the Six-Day War, we suffered from French embargo and boycott. And even today, with the BDS and all those people who try to harm Israel and boycott Israel, and you see them from time to time in the streets all over. And I think the best answer is maybe to see a very short movie. Yeah. Okay, so let's just a second.
Switch them over, Jason. He showed this to the school on Thursday, and it was real good, just to kind of give you guys an idea of the products if you want to boycott Israel, what you're actually boycotting.
I don't have sound again.
Yeah. Go ahead and play the sound. He's good now.
Okay.
Hi there, my name is Hanania. So you want to boycott Israel, right? Well, this video is just... If you really want to boycott Israel, here are a few steps to help you to make sure that you don't use any of our products. Take your computer, laptop and tablet and remove all Intel's Pentium or Celeron processors from it, as these were either developed or manufactured here in Israel. And if your computer is still working, it has to have an antivirus or a firewall program. That's right, I'll have to ask you to remove it because this technology originated in Israel. In addition, all Microsoft operating systems are not to be used, as Microsoft is heavily reliant on its Israel R&D center. If you have a mobile phone, listen carefully. You can't make any use of SMS because this facility was developed again in Israel. No 4G devices can be used as the chipset is Israeli. And all of you people who boycott Israel but use Apple products, you must be kidding me because there is an Israeli chip inside your phone. Do not buy an electric car because it is most likely to be powered with an Israeli battery. Destroy all personal medication. Israel's Teva Pharmaceuticals, the largest generic drugs company in the world, have manufactured many of our medicines. Also, don't use any medication or any form of treatment for cancer, AIDS, HIV, and more. Because for decades, Israeli scientists have been working at the forefront in developing any kind of medicine or treatment. Do not travel by air, as your plane might get towed by the Israeli-built taxi bot. We're almost done. You can't use USB flash drive, rooftop solar for hot water, Viber, Get Taxi, Waze, and many more Israeli products, because these are Israeli inventions. So if you really want to boycott Israel, at least do it the right way. Guys, people call to boycott Israel all around the world, so let's fight for Israel by sharing this video of what it really means to boycott Israel. Remain in God. Love you.
And it's interesting that Israel doesn't actually have a lot of natural resources, almost none actually, but you spoke to the school about what Israel does invest in. And if you want to just speak to that real quick, Avi.
Well, as said, we have no raw material whatsoever. It's a milk and honey land, but no oil. And we always joke and say that all over the world, when they're drilling for oil, they're drilling that way. We are drilling that way, direction to Saudi Arabia. Anyway, with God's hands, in the last 5-6 years, we revealed a huge gas reservoirs in the sea, which bring Israel in the next few years to energy independence, which is good. And because of this lack of raw materials and others, the only thing we have is our brain. So you're going for different startups, as you see, and some of them already mentioned over here in the movie, but just give you the idea. The Iron Dome that you are familiar with, the laser keyboard. Some of you might use the dictionary, Babylon, it's Israeli. The HDMI, the cable for the HD, it's Israeli. The internet phone, Skype, all the protocol connection, Skype, Google Plus and others. The pilots' helmets of the F-15, F-16, the F-35, all of them made in Israel and invented in Israel. We invent a small, tiny pill, which actually a camera, which you can swallow it, and by that way have the indication what's going on inside. Just lately, Israeli doctor and scientists developed some helmet which Parkinson people that suffer from Parkinson put it on their head for about 20 minutes or so. It's not revealed, but it's helped them and it's decrease the symptoms, so they can actually not shaking for a period of time and all those.
So this is for Parkinson's disease?
Yeah. And guys, the dripping system for wines or everything else has been invented in Israel. Your cherry tomatoes, those little ones, guys, from Israel. And probably in a long winter, snowing nights like we have the last couple days here, some of you play Remy Cube. Remy was the cube.
Rummy Cube?
Remy Cube? Yeah. Israel. So really, and if you want to know more, I think there's a beautiful book by the name of Israel Startup, which give you more indication about what we are doing. And this is actually Israel advantage on all what surrounds us. We invest at in the human source, education and colleges and universities, because this is our main advantage.
Well, we spoke to why we wouldn't want to boycott Israel products, but I think we're going on a trip to Israel next March, not this March, so 2018. You guys can mark on your calendars. And Avi, I just wanted you to speak to why someone should go. This is your chance to give the church a plug, since she is a tour guide. Why people should want to go to Israel? What's the use of it? How will it affect their faith? And he's going to share some sites too, so if you guys can put his computer back up there and he'll talk to those. And actually, while he's doing that, Steve, you want to explain, just give us your first impression the first time you went, and maybe why you liked it so much and why you keep going back, he can't even count how many times he's been, so he's been a lot, so.
Yeah. When I always tell you guys whenever we're going to go to Israel, I always tell my story, so a lot of this is familiar to people who've been here. But when I was first told that I should go to Israel, I was like, I teach Bible studies and I study all the time. Back then, didn't have computers, so I'm just doing it out of books and that kind of stuff. And I was like, what do I want to go to Israel for? You know, it's like I'm going to, you know, pay this huge amount of money, $1,600. This is back in the 80s. It's significantly more than that now. But I'm going to pay this huge amount of money, and it's just a place I can read about it in books, and I can look at pictures, and it'll be fine. And then the pastor gave me a free ticket. And so at that point, then it was half price because I was going to take my wife and that kind of stuff. And I cannot believe how fruitful it was. Just about every time that I'm teaching you guys, if we're in a passage in the, well, Old Testament, New Testament, it doesn't matter. We're in a passage, many of the places that the Bible talks about, I've been there. And so I'm seeing it all in my head. And it makes a total difference. First place that I ever taught in Israel was outside of Jerusalem in the Garden of Gethsemane. And there's a whole hillside there. There's the site where the church is at, but we were off they have all these little areas where you can go and you can teach. And what was cool about the first place that I taught was you could see the wall of Jerusalem. You could see all the way down the valley. And it was a situation where I'm going through the passage where Jesus is in Gethsemane, and he's talking. Remember when he says, that Satan's hour has come and his time was about to take place? Well, there's a reason for that. The people who came to get Jesus came out with torches, and they came out at the southern end of the city, and they would have walked up to the valley. He could see them coming as he was doing it. It was a full moon that night, because it's always full moon on Passover. And so the night would have been bright unless it was cloudy, obviously. But there, it was just awesome to be there. Still in my head, I'm seeing the gates, I'm seeing the walls, I'm seeing the valley, I'm seeing the area that's around me, and it's a pretty cool thing. Went up to Galilee. I love the area of Galilee because it's not as populated, and all the geography is exactly the same. And so we know where the towns are. So Capernaum, for example, is kind of the headquarters of Jesus. And so in my head, I can see Capernaum from sitting on the lake, because I've been on the Sea of Galilee a number of times. And a number of other places when we talk about Dan. Remember Bethel and Dan, and where they put in northern Israel, when they decided to go back to calf worship and all that stuff, they put one temple in Bethel, and then they put another one up in Dan. Well, I've been to Dan, been to the place where they did the calf worship, been to the place where they found the altar, where they did these things, and so it's just a really cool thing. Then obviously there's Jerusalem. You go through Jerusalem. Jerusalem's a little bit different because you're about 25 feet above ground that Jesus was on. But there are a number of places where they've literally dug down to the pavement, and you are literally in places where Jesus walked. Not to mention, you talk about David. They've been excavating in the city of David, and so they found David's palace, probably David's bathroom, his toilet. Seriously, they found this stuff, and so it's a very cool thing. So I went there as a skeptic, and I came away just blown away by how awesome it was. So every time I'm reading my Bible, I can see the places in my head, and because I've been there. So
yeah, you told me before I actually went, he said this is one good reason to go into debt. Is one thing you told me. And then the other thing Steve told me was it's like an equivalent of a year of Bible college, which a lot of you guys don't have the time to take Bible college, but maybe you can get off for 2 weeks and get to Israel, and you just soak it up. It's because you're there, it's visual, you see everything. And Avi, again, if you could speak to why people should go and what the effect has on their faith.
Well, why you should go to Israel? I think visit Israel, as Steve said, it's more than one year in college. Everybody's worship, and everybody have his relation with the Lord. And you are coming here on Sundays, and you are members of the community, and you hear about all those things. But suddenly those things, literally speaking, come to your life. Because think about it, for example, you're touring from the Galilee to Caesarea or to Jerusalem or through the Jordan Valley. and the landscape did not change. So you're looking out, or you're standing somewhere, and you're looking at the same landscape that Jesus looked at. And when you speak about walking in Jesus' step, that's literally speaking, what are you doing? You are going to some site which they excavated, and you find real evidence. What is the meaning of belief? It doesn't need any proof. It's either you believe it or not. But it's always nice to have. And speaking about that, just 2 days ago, they published a research of an Israeli expedition in Solomon Mines in the Negev, in Timna, and they found actually evidence that crossed information with the biblical story of King David going down south to the Sea of the Dead Sea, and actually fights with the Edomites and killed 18,000 of them and actually conquered them. They found a few hundred meters of a wall, about 5 or 6 meters high. They found large numbers of catapult stones, which are actually evidence for the fights. And more. Today with the carbon-14 checks and everything, you can date it very, very accurate. 10th century BC. That's exactly the time. So we speak about Caesarea. This is what you see here. This is, in my point of view, one of the most important things they found in Caesarea. They found it actually as a secondary use as a bench at the theater that you saw before. And they found an inscription over there. You see the inscription? Over here? You know what it said? It's mentioned a name. The name of the Roman governor at that time. Pontius Pilate. So we knew about Pontius Pilate. We knew it from the New Testament. We knew it from other documents, but we never have an evidence that he was really exist. And find this, for example, in my point of view, it's very meaningful. So excavation is one of the most important things in Israel. And usually in Israel, you have about 14 different layers of excavation. When you go to Megiddo, what we named Armageddon in English, you are digging 30 different layers. So it's quite amazing. And as I always say, only a nation that know and care about her past have a future.
One of the things with the Pilate stone, and also with what Avi's talking about with the find at Timnah at Solomon's Mines. So, one of the things that you have with this is many times people are going to the New Testament or the Old Testament and saying that these things didn't happen, that they're just folklore, didn't exist. And so for a long time, scholars didn't believe in Pontius Pilate until they come and find a rock with his name on it, and then they're like, oh, never mind, and off they go. And the same thing's been happening with David. There's been in archaeological circles people who don't believe the fact that there was a King David, that there was a King Solomon, and that kind of thing. And every time that the archaeologists turn a shovel full of dirt over, they're finding things that correspond to the Bible. And if you think about what you have in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, there's obviously a lot of information. It's all historical. And so if you kind of take a line and do like this, and everything that the Bible says and everything that archaeologists first believed, in the sense of not believing what Scripture says. Every time that they make a find, that knowledge level is moving towards what the Bible actually says. It never moves back towards the theories of the archaeologists. It's always going towards the Bible. And so it's a very cool thing. I've seen a gate. We've all seen a gate that Abraham saw. It's 2000 BC. And there is a mud gate in Tel Dan that was there at the time of Abraham. And so, again, it's just a really awesome thing. Avi's got a picture of Mount Carmel up there. It's where Elijah had the battle with 400 prophets of Baal. So whenever I think of that story, and I tell that story often, whenever I think of it, I'm thinking of the area that's there. It's a what we would call they're mountains in Israel, but they're kind of hills in the United States.
Tri-Cities Mountains.
Yeah, Tri-Cities Mountains.
We can use your river, definitely.
He'll show you pictures of the Jordan River. It's not quite like the Columbia.
Yeah, some kind of a narrow stream. But actually, if you look over there, what you see behind me is the landscape of parts of the Armageddon Valley. By the way, you know that you're speaking Hebrew. Some of you probably not aware to, but you sang Hallelujah. These are two Hebrew words, Hallelu, which means phrase, and Yah, one of the names of the Lord in Hebrew. You sing Hosanna. Same. You're speaking about Armageddon, and mistakenly pronounced two Hebrew words, Har and Megiddo. Har means mountain, Megiddo is the name of the place, and the mountain of Megiddo turned to be in English Armageddon. So that's the Armageddon Valley with the village of Nin just over there. And vaguely over there, this beautiful hills. That's the Tabor Mountain, the Transfiguration.
So Mount Tabor.
Megiddo with an amazing water system, this one, that you actually walk about down there 188 steps, and you know that what goes down must come up. So another 70 steps up, but an amazing ability and engineering ability when you think about the time that it's made. You see a very special altar with the 4 horns in the corner, and look at that. This gives you the idea. This was the ground level at that time. They need to cut about 30 or 50 meters to reach to this layer. And archaeology is like life. It's not what you're taking, it's what you're giving up. And you find this amazing round-shaped altar. They found remains of animal bones in between and stuff like this. So this is Megiddo, one of the. They found the stables that belonged to King Solomon. They belonged to his son Ahab, but they are there. And again, the written word is coming to life.
Yeah. So you remember the manger that my son was laying in? I've got a picture of my son laying in a manger and my daughter laying in a manger. Those are at the stables at Megiddo.
Yeah. The Solomon Time Gate in Megiddo, and this is the manger.
There's a manger.
There it is.
Away in a manger.
How about your favorite sites to take people to? I mean, you can't go through them all, we don't have time, but just a few of your favorite ones that you can think of.
Well, first of all, I must say that in these journeys, it's not a vacation. So if you think you're coming to land the beach, it's not the case. You wake up in the morning, and your sergeant major, which is me, leaving the hotel at 8 o'clock, and we start touring. And why is that? Because it's a limited period of time, and we want you to see as much as possible. And I think you really cover the most important first layers of significant sites. And if I have to look of my favorite, that will be probably 2 of them. Jerusalem, with all the sites and the mixing of Christian sites and Jewish sites and Muslim sites. And Masada, with the unique story of Masada. And these are the two. These are the 2. Jerusalem as a symbol of the ability of people with different beliefs. But actually not a different belief, the same belief, to believe in God. From one hand, and the heroic story of Masada, of people that willing to give their life and not lose their spiritual and religious belief. So these are the two places.
And you can keep flipping through slides as we go, but I kind of wanted to switch topics. I know a lot of you guys that follow the news saw the recent UN decision, and they wanted to remove Jewish settlements. And as Americans, we have no idea what that means. And I know, just speaking from my own ignorance, like what exactly does that entail? What are they giving up? Settlements are just neighborhoods. Am I correct on that? It's not just like, I think of settlements for some reason like camping places, but this is like actual neighborhoods where people are living and they have families and homes, and they're giving these back, or giving them to the Arabs, and Could you maybe address that and explain that a little bit to us?
Well, for doing that, we have to go back a little bit to 1967, Six-Day War. The Syrian, the Egyptian, and the Jordanian have a scam to attack Israel. Israel decided to be the first one to do it, and actually by, I would say, defensive offensive, destroying a couple hours in the morning all the air forces of the Arab countries. Fights going on at the northern front and the southern front. And King Hussein in Jordan, late King Hussein, want to show his colleagues that he is part of the program, of the plan, so he started bombing and shelling Jerusalem. We sent some messages, stop doing it, and he did not. And by doing that, after 2.5 days, the Israeli troops went east into what used to be Jordanian territory, what's named the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and took over the east part of Jerusalem with all the Jewish sites that we have to left 19 years before in the Independence War, and Hebron and other places. So it's very important to emphasize that those territories that today claimed by the Palestinians are actually by any international law Jordanian territories until 1967, okay? And after that, this is our homeland, this is the biblical Israel. The idea was to settle Jews over there, all over. And we start building settlements or neighborhoods or small cities, probably half or 1/3 from Tri-Cities. This will be the biggest towns. And we settled there because people have a great strong of belief that they are coming back to their biblical Israel. Somehow on the way, especially at the last 8 years, and probably you know why, settlements start to be defined as neighborhoods of Jerusalem. Neighborhoods that we extend by the years became settlements by the definition of the administration. And both sides, to my sorrow, know the ending agreement line and agreed about 90%, with some kind of territories exchange between us and the Palestinians. But the Palestinians demand again and again and again to go to some kind of international umbrella or something like that instead of just have a direct negotiation. And as I mentioned, I think on Wednesday when I was here, the distance from Jerusalem to Ramallah, which is the main Palestinian town where the administration is about 15 minutes driving. So you don't have to go either to the UN or to a convention in Paris or whatever you want. You just need to talk directly. And to my sorrow, if it wasn't so tragic, it was really were funny. We used to have a very talented Minister of Foreign Affairs by the name of Obby, and he said once on the Palestinians, he said, they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And it's pity because we are neighbors, and at the end of the day, by the Lord, we have to live there, both of those nations. So let's just talk and put an end to the story. You need two brave leaders. You need to have some painful give-ups, and at least give it a chance. If it works, that's great for both sides. If it not works and they attacked us, I think we have the whole justification to wipe them out, but let's try. Yeah, I told you, we are totally not politically correct. By the way, that's the Jordan River. People from time to time ask me, are you sure that this is the Jordan River from the Bible? I said, yes, guys, that's yeah.
You spoke a lot on Wednesday to the threats that are around Israel. You went through all the different nations and ISIS and all these things that are coming down. And I just wanted you to speak to what, in your opinion, is the biggest threat to the nation of Israel.
As I mentioned, if you're looking at threats from outside, today it's the Iranians. It's the Iranians. And the other threat is that Israel won't continue to be what it is. And by that way, I mean we must continue to invest in education and have the human advantage against all our enemies. And live our life a normal life. We have all the reason to become a garrison state with all what's going on around us and with this fighting from time to time. And still, we develop agriculture, and we develop medicine, and we develop dripping systems and education and culture and science. The lady that awarded the chemistry Nobel Prize 5 years ago, and the two gentlemen that have Nobel Prize award in physics and mathematics, all of them from Weizmann Institute, which is the main research institute. So I'm looking from both views. One of them is the external threats, and the other one is the domestic one, because security and secure of a nation is not only vis-a-vis the enemies or who is at the other side of the border. It's an inside too. And education is one of the most important things. To my sorrow, our neighbor educate to hatred while we try to do the opposite.
And Steve, maybe you could speak to the, prophetically speaking, the Bible, the nations that have attacked Israel haven't changed for the most part. It's the same people, but the Bible also predicts in the end times that the nations that are actually lining up against Israel right now are some of the ones the Bible speaks of.
Yeah, when you talk about nations that attack Israel, many times in the Old Testament, you're talking about places like Edom, Ammon, Egypt, those kinds of places. Some of the most famous attacks were from Assyria and Babylon. And so Edom, Ammon, that's Jordan. Egypt is obviously Egypt. Assyria is the area just north of Assyria, northern Iraq, and Babylon is Iraq. Persia also was a kingdom that took over the Babylonians, but they never attacked the Israelis in the sense of coming down and necessarily taking over the nation of Israel. So obviously there's been tension in the Middle East for a long time. But whenever we talk about the Ezekiel 38 battle, and that's one of those that I mention pretty routinely, it is a coalition of nations that are listed that are just really interesting. And it's changed over time as far as what the political situation is in the world since I've been a Christian. And so the first time I heard about this battle was in 1975. And the nations that are listed are Gog of the land of Magog, prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I'm reading out of Ezekiel 38 right now. And then it speaks about Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, Gomer, and the house of Togarmah. And those are the nations that are coming down against Israel in an attack where God shows that he is the one who protects Israel, and he wipes them out, literally the Bible says, on the mountains of Israel. Well, Magog, when you go back in history and you find the etymology of that, had to do with the Scythians, according to Josephus, and that area is what we would call Russia. And so it could be a group of nations that are in southern Russia, but it's what we would call Russia today. When you talk about Persia, Persia was an interesting one because in 1975, when I first heard this, Persia was an American ally. And they had good relations with Israel. That's Iran. And so in 1979, you had the Iranian Revolution, and Iran is one of the major players in world terrorism to this day, since that point. And so there was a sea change that took place in the nation of Iran, and it went biblical, basically. And then Ethiopia, that's northern Ethiopia, southern Sudan, possibly parts of southern Egypt were included in Ethiopia back at that time. Libya, Gaddafi in Libya, and we got rid of Gaddafi and made it all better over there, right? Yeah. No, now it's worse over in Libya. Gomer is one of those that's kind of vague, but I'm kind of looking at the Balkans, actually. Because all these other nations are Muslim. And then the last one is the House of Togarmah. And that's one that I've been watching for since the early 80s. I realized that the House of Togarmah is most likely talking about Turkey. And again, Turkey is a U.S. ally, still to this day. They're a U.S. ally. But you know what happened this last year in Turkey with the coup and with America being blamed for the coup? Erdogan coming to power and shifting the political spectrum towards Islam and Islamic fundamentalism and some of the problems that have been taking place. We just had a situation over in Syria just this last month, where Russia, Iran, and Turkey were all together trying to come up with a peace plan for the Syrians, and the Americans were left out. And that's one of the things also that you see in this battle in Ezekiel 38, that there is no mention of the United States. In fact, when you go through the Bible, there are very few passages that may refer to the United States. One of them is in Ezekiel 38, talking about the young lions of Tarshish. And that's all speculative. That depends on what Tarshish was. And basically what I'm saying is verse 13 of Ezekiel 38 talks about a diplomatic protest when this attack takes place. It says, Sheba, Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish, and all their young lions will say to you, have you come to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, to take great plunder? And basically all they do is complain. Well, Sheba and Dedan, it's talking about Saudi Arabia. That's that area. And when you're talking about Tarshish, Tarshish was just a land that was far away from Israel. Remember when Jonah wanted to get away from God? Where did he go?
Tarshish.
Yeah, he was going to Tarshish. It's as far away as he could get. And Tarshish was known for tin mining. And so some people think that it may have been Spain. Spain is a possibility. There's also a possibility with Great Britain, because Great Britain was known for tin mining, and the more archaeology we do, the more we're finding out that in ancient times that there was contact with the Mediterranean area in Great Britain. If Great Britain is Tarshish, then the young lions of Tarshish would be colonies of Great Britain. So one colony of Great Britain is Australia, right? Another one is Canada. Guess what another one is? United States. And so that's a big if there. But if all that's true, then what we do is a diplomatic protest. And specifically, the Bible talks about the fact that when Israel gets in some of these places that the scripture predicts that they're on their own. And that has not been the case up until the last 8 years or so. They have not been on their own. And one of the frightening things in American politics that I've seen is this move to isolate Israel. And that's not a good thing. It's not. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. I've been there a number of times. I've been to some Muslim countries. They do not compare. They do not compare. When you get to Israel, Israel is a place where you feel comfortable, where there's some there's a mindset that's in common in the land of Israel, and they're allies. And one of the things that's been happening in the Middle East is that we have shown ourselves, as far as the United States goes, not to be people who will back their allies. And so in the Arab Spring, for example, we let Egypt go and didn't back them up. And on the other hand, when you see what's happening with Russia in the Middle East, which again looks like it's a major player in this event, the Russians back their allies. That's what's happening in Syria right now. Assad is an ally with Russia. And so the Russians are showing themselves to be people who will back their allies. The Americans are showing themselves to be people who will throw their allies under a bus. And that's what people in the Muslim countries in the Middle East are seeing from us. And it's not a good thing. But in any case, all of this stuff goes together. Isolation of Israel, and then attacks. And then it's really clear in the passage that God just takes them out, takes the bad guys out. And it's a really cool passage. Very dramatic. Go through and read it.
And you've talked about Turkey being like that last country that you've been looking for years and years, and things lining up right now with what's going on in Turkey and the political, shift there.
The Turks call themselves the sons of Togarmah. And so it's, literally out of the Bible. And so really, really interesting stuff there, yeah.
Just shift topics one more time. One of the sites we get to go to when we go to Israel is not biblical, but it's very powerful. It's the Holocaust Museum. And, it's a great tribute not just to the Jews who suffered in World War II, but also Christians and other people groups that went through things. And it's just a great place to go through and see the history. And, I wanted to speak to a couple questions here, Avi. A lot of people, the kind of vibe we get is that a lot of Jews don't believe in God because of the Holocaust. They became atheists because they felt like God abandoned them. And then my other question would be, just living where you're at in the environment and the history that you guys have, how do you maintain faith in God? And how do you even raise that up with your children? How do you teach them to love people and all those things?
Well, I don't know why you get the impression of a lot of Jews don't believe in God after the Holocaust. The Holocaust influenced people different way. Some of them, as you said, get away from God, I would say, because they said, "Where is God?" The other people will say, "We don't know all God plans, and this is probably something that He planned for us." And from one hand, I always say, if the State of Israel established 10 years ahead, 1948, let's say 1938, probably the history of the Jewish people will be different because we'll have state. From the other hand, I'm not sure that we will getting a state by the UN and by all the international recognition in 1948 if, to my sorrow, what's happened in World War II to the Jewish people has been happened. So it might be that this was actually increased the coming back of the Jewish people. So there's the different views. So regarding that, I respect every belief and every influence. We cannot understand. We will never understand what these people has been through. My mom was a child in Berlin, in Germany, at the age of 9, and she passed the war. 5 years of an amazing story. If you just go to Amazon and find Simon & Schuster and look for Odyssey by John Bierman, this my mom's story and other 500 Jews. And my grandfather was sent to some kind of concentration camp, Sachsenhausen. There was a movie about, I think, 5, 6, 7 years ago about the counterfeit, those Jews that the German collect and trying to fake American money. So he was a very talented guy. He was one of them. And it was just the beginning of the Nazi machine. So they brought him there, and after about 5 months, they succeeded to somehow to free him. There was some lady that donated a lot of money. That time, 5,000 sterlings. I'm talking about 1938, 1940. So they released him after 5 months. And my mother always said that she came back home from school and she entered to the apartment and suddenly saw a strange man sitting on the chair in the kitchen. And only when she came very close, she realized that this is her father because it was so seen. And the only thing he did, he told her, call all the women. And she ran away between the buildings and called all the women. And he said, do whatever you can. Take your women, take your family, take your men out and leave. And this is what they did. A week after he was released, they left everything behind and they left and they wandered around Europe for 5 years and they succeeded to survive. But so I cannot judge those people. From the other hand, when you ask about what we are doing to maintain the belief, I don't think we have to do much. I think the belief is in every Israeli. The fact that you are Israeli, the fact that you are Jewish, the fact that you are staying and you live your life in Israel, the fact that at the age of 18 you call to leave all your dreams and all your inspirations or all whatever you want to do and stay for your country and stand for your country for 3 or 2 years, depending if it's a boy or girl. And after that, another 20 years of service as a reserve forces for between 1 month to 60 days per year. That's give you something that it's so inner belief that even if you don't go to the synagogue every Saturday, or you don't do all the things that you are supposed to do if you are very Orthodox or modern Orthodox, whatever it is, the belief is there. And if it won't be there, You can't see the young generation, for example, finish the high school, and it was obvious that they will go to serve for 3 years. It's what I named the Israeli route. They're waiting for that. They're training a year before to accept themselves to the best units. And by doing that, they won't speak about it. But somewhere over there is the belief, is the Holocaust, is God. Because what is our justification and rights on this piece of land? The Bible.
Just to kind of wrap it up, I was thinking of, the Jewish perspective. We're so fortunate to have you here, Avi. And, the Jews are looking for Mashiach, as you would say, their Messiah to come back. What are you guys looking for in that Messiah, in that return?
The belief is that when the Messiah will arrive, there'll be actually a world peace. And everybody sit under his winery and under his olive tree. And it will be a peace, and of course, the third temple will be built. And it might be that because of, before that will be the battle of Gog and Magog, between the son of the light and the son of the darkness, as John vision speak about. But this is the main idea, that when the Messiah arrive, there'll be a world peace.
And Steve, maybe you could wrap this up with some closing thoughts on.
Yeah, one of the things that is really cool about being a Christian and our involvement with Israel and all that, obviously we have Jewish roots. Jesus is Jewish. He still is. He's Jewish, and he's from the tribe of Judah. And there are many passages in the Old Testament that just flatly talk about the fact that God was going to do a work in reaching out to the Gentiles. And so I think of Isaiah chapter 9, for example, where it talks about the Gentiles will see a great light. But one of my favorite passages to talk with people about as far as the Old Testament goes is Isaiah 52 and 53. When you many times talk with people about the Lord, they think that what we have is kind of a New Testament Messiah, and even many Christians look at the Old Testament and they just dismiss it. And they're just like that. Well, that's Old Testament, doesn't have anything to do with us. But frankly, just about everything that we do as Christians, even the way that we're meeting right now, this comes from the synagogue. The way that we do our services, it comes from the synagogue. And early Christians were all Jewish. There's a passage in Isaiah 53. It starts in Isaiah 52:13. It says this: "Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. Just as many were astonished at you, so his visage was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men." And in fact, in Isaiah 50, verse 6, it talks about the fact that he gave his back to the smiters and that they plucked his beard out. This servant that Isaiah is speaking about. It says, so shall he sprinkle many nations. Kings shall shut their mouths at him. For what had not been told them, they shall see, and what they had not heard, they shall consider. Who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? That word arm there is a word in Hebrew, zeroah. And we've done Passover Seders. We do Passover Seders routinely here. I don't know if I've ever told you that. But we've
so
done
I should come in Passover.
Yeah.
Probably no snow.
Okay. You can tell us what we're doing wrong.
Oh, no. I'm sure you're doing great.
And so, in the Passover, there's there's a plate, and there are different herbs on it, and lettuce and parsley and different things like that. But right in the middle of it is a lamb bone, a lamb shank. It's called a zeroah. And when it says, "Who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" it's the zeroah in that passage. For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, talking about the servant growing up before the Lord. As a root out of dry ground, he has no form or comeliness. And when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. And so there's this dichotomy between the way that the world saw Jesus and the way that God saw Jesus. When God was seeing Jesus, he was seeing a root out of dry ground. It's I've told you guys before, in the Arabah down in the Negev and in the area around the Dead Sea, that it's like the moon. It's like literally no vegetation, and it's an amazing contrast, because when you see any vegetation, it's just it jumps out at you, and that's the picture here. Jesus is like a root out of dry ground. He's like a tender plant in the middle of a vast desert. And as God was looking at him, that's what he was seeing, a desert of humanity, and then out comes his servant, something totally and completely different. But when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. It says he is despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken. Now, what that literally means is we thought that he was being stricken and smitten by God and afflicted. But then it says, but he was wounded for our transgressions. And that word wounded there means pierced through. He was pierced through for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. Then it goes on and says, all we, like sheep, have gone astray. We've turned every one to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And so God compares us to sheep wandering, and that God took the iniquity, the sin, the wickedness that we have, and laid it on him. It says he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. And you remember the arrest of Jesus, and how he didn't fight it. And he could have easily, it was an illegal arrest. It was an event that took place at the wrong time. A trial never took place at night. It was illegal. And yet he didn't open his mouth. It says he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who will declare his generation? That generation, that word generation there means his great and numerous posterity. The fact that there was going to be a group of people that came from him, for he was cut off from the land of the living. For the transgressions of my people he was stricken. And they made his grave with the wicked. That word wicked is plural. And then it says, but with the rich at his death. And that word rich is singular. So 2 wicked men Jesus died with, and he was buried with the rich, singular in his death. And so when you look at what happened with Christ, how many people did Jesus die with? Yeah, it was 2 thieves on the cross. And what was he laid in? A rich man's tomb. Yeah. Again, singular. Because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. And this is talking about it was God's plan. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering for sin. Then it says, he shall see his seed. Well, how's he going to see his seed if he's dead? Right? And the seed that's being spoken about are the ones that come from him. He shall prolong his days. That literally means cause to be long. It means to live long. So God allows Jesus to see his seed, allows him to prolong his days. And that's an indication of a resurrection. And the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. The pleasure there is the word for the will or the plan. The plan of the Lord will prosper in this servant's hand. He shall see the labor of his soul and be satisfied. And so when you're talking about in Isaiah 53, the suffering servant, it says he's going to go through this, and then he's going to see the labor of his soul, and he's going to be satisfied with it. So is Jesus satisfied with the labor of his soul? And the Bible says that Jesus went to the cross and he despised the shame, and he did it for the joy that was set before him. And that joy is you and I, right? It says, by his knowledge, my righteous servant shall justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. That could be translated, by knowledge of him, my righteous servant shall justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the great, he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul into death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. He bore the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. And that word intercession there is in the future tense. It's the idea of it's ongoing. And we know that the Bible says that Jesus continually prays for us, right? And so this is one of those passages that I like to share with people when they don't know anything about the Bible. And I've as a matter of fact, just typed it up and handed it to people and had them just read it and ask them, who is this about? Who do you think this is about? And where do you think it came from? And to a person, they've always said to me, I think it's about Jesus, and it must be from the New Testament. And this was written 715 years before the events, 683 BC, 715 years before the events. And so when we go through the Old Testament and we see some of the prophecies, and not just the prophecies about the Messiah, but the prophecies about the land of Israel. You know, the Bible talks about the fact that the land of Israel was going to be barren. It was going to be a desert, and then it was going to bloom. And when, you know, many times we don't have the mindset of what Israel looked like when the Jews first began the return. It was either desert or swamp. And one of the most dangerous diseases in Israel was malaria, of all things. And so, you know, the Israelis came in, they drained the swamps, they irrigated the desert. Avi was talking about the drip system.
And they figure out the vaccine for malaria for the whole world.
Yeah. The vaccine for malaria, I didn't know that either. So I learned two things this week: cherry tomatoes and the vaccine for malaria.
Both equally important.
Yes.
I just want to join to what you said, Steve, about the Jews and the Christians. You have to remember that actually the first people who go after Jesus' ideas were those Judeo-Christian communities.
Yeah.
There was 300 years between Jesus and Christianity. In these 300 years, those Romans that we are so admire, their culture and everything, actually persecute and kill those who follow Jesus' idea. And the late former Pope, John Paul II, which I was really admired, was a very special person. He was joined the underground, Polish underground against the Nazis and stuff like this. And he is the one that actually declared and announced that the Jews shouldn't be blamed of killing Jesus. Mm-hmm. Until that time, this was the dogma. So think about the greatness of this man. And when I'm looking at the current Pope, which come from Argentina, which I think he amazed the whole Christian world with his ideas, just about 4 or 5 months, he came out and declared a beautiful declaration that I adjust and adopt immediately. And he said, in every Christian, there is a Jew. And if I'm looking at the process that Judaism and Christianity do in the last 60, 70 years, and I think mainly after the establishment of the State of Israel, it's something that close more and more. And if we just look for what's unite us and not separate us, the world will probably be a much better place.
Absolutely. You don't ditch the Old Testament. It's full of awesome things.
Just look at this one. This is the gate. That's some mud bricks. This is Tel Dan. This is the most ancient arch gate in the world. And probably, very, very likely, this is the gate that Abraham went inside when he walked and met the king of Dan. That's the most ancient arch gate in the world, guys.
There's a guy sitting there, you never let me touch it.
Well, that's a picture from a long time ago. Now it's fenced all over. But they took you to other cool place. Okay. Like this one, Caesarea Philippi. On this rock I'll build a church. Look at the rock.
See, this whole ridge right here is just a big, massive rock, basically, and that's the place where Jesus talked about, on this rock I'll build my church. So, yeah.
You want to speak about Berntal?
Yeah.
You see we have snow, guys? You see the background? Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, there's snow.
Look at that, that's snow. This is the Hermon Mountain, the highest mountain in Israel. This is the Israeli peak over here. You can't see the Israeli post, but I spent there about 3-4 winters. So that's why I'm quite happy with the snow. It's fine with me.
That's not what you've been
The other
saying.
high peak is the Syrian one. And this is one of the places we used to go, and over there have a beautiful overview on the Israeli-Syrian border, actually.
Actually, Mount Hermon, that's what this is. Jesus, when he went to the Transfiguration, the Bible says that he went on to an exceedingly high mountain. And so this may be the place. So there's two places in Israel that, there's one place that's traditional, it's Mount Tabor for the Transfiguration, and this is actually in the area.
Probably very likely the place, and maybe because of this ability to reach there by the years, they shift to Mount Tabor, but it's written, and then they went up to a high mountain, and the closest high mountain from Caesarea Philippi, which is about half a day walking, is there, not the Tabor mountain.
Right, so, this one right here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you guys, we've been so blessed to have Avi here this week, and just super excited that he came, and him and his wife and I. If you guys would just thank them with me, and
thank you very much. It's our privilege to be here. We felt really at home between friends and family, and for us it was a great experience. Thank you for coming.
All right. Let's all stand.